Hi, I'm Nathan from Serious Geeks, and before I carry on with the video today, just want to say a quick thank you for everyone's patience. I've had a lot of things on lately, what with family going into hospital, etc. So I've not really had the opportunity to get cracking with some of the videos, but I'm straight back on it now, and I hope you enjoy. So anyway, this video is going to be a Tactica video about Necron Warriors from Codex Necrons. I was kind of dreading doing this one because I thought it would be quite a large one, but I don't actually think it will be. It's fairly simple how to use Necron Warriors, and the support around them will often be covered in different units, etc. that are linked to them, such as Ghost Arcs, but I will obviously touch upon those later on. First up, let's have a look at the stat line. Number 10 to 20 is quite substantial. You can have a large amount of models in the unit, which is obviously kind of going to point you in a certain direction. They've got movement of 5, which is what we expect across the Necron army. Fairly slow. Weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, that's really good. Being able to hit on a 3+ means that you're going to be fairly consistent and considered fairly elite. Strength 4, toughness 4, again it's very standard, it's the benchmark. Toughness 4 is the magic number to be fairly tough and survivable. Having 50% of all bolter shots not wounding you is going to be quite nice and delicious, especially with Space Marines being such a prominent force. Wounds 1, well, we kind of expect that from a Xenos race that has a basic troops choice. 1 attack, again, they're not a close combat unit, so that is fairly standard. Leadership 10, which is actually really good and going to be critical for a large unit. And then lastly, a 4+ save. At the moment, points-wise, they are clocking in at 13 points a model. That can obviously go up and down depending on FAQ changes and other changes that the Games Workshop might introduce. But for now, they're going to be broadly considered a unit that is fairly cheap in comparison to everything around them. And regardless of any points increases in the future, that would still be the case. So as a troops choice and the cheapest models that you can get in the army coming in at 10 to 20, you're going to be encouraged to take large numbers of these. So as such, that is probably the best way to play them. Units of 10, they're okay, but you're going to have to rely on them just not being targeted. And that is not really going to happen because people are going to want to remove these off the table for various reasons. Board control, objective holding, the fact that they can present a bit of a threat to the enemy. So you're going to want to go upwards in your numbers in the unit. Start with 15, anywhere between 15 and 20 is my recommendation in regards to that. That's not to say you can't take 10 and be effective. The best reason to take 10 would be to put them in a Ghost Arc. Putting them in the Ghost Arc, and then you can move up the table, hold ground further away from your deployment zone. Bear in mind they've only got movement of 5, so they're going to be fairly slow, and you've got the support from the Ghost Arc itself. So consider carefully how many you're going to take in the unit. I recommend a fairly hefty amount of them if they're foot's login, so that they can weather casualties and take advantage of their number as Legion, or you put 10 inside a Ghost Arc. Now checking out their weapons, the Gauss Flare, range 24 rapid fire, strength 4 AP -1. It's a bolter essentially. It's a bolt rifle for a Primaris. Slightly less range, but basically the same hitting power. A large unit of these can put down a lot of fire down the table. As a consideration, you might want to hold these guys back, holding that terrain, holding that objective, and they can still plink shots up the table at 24 inches, so it's not a bad weapon in that regard. The Gauss Reaper only has a range of 12, but it's Assault 2, Strength 5, -2 AP. It's a very effective weapon, but I wouldn't recommend it on foot sloggers. I think foot slogging up the table really slow and you're hoping the enemy gets within 12. I don't think that's going to happen. And at the end of the day, it's more of an opportunist weapon in that regard and you just won't get the best out of it. The Gauss Reaper is really effective when you have a unit in a Ghost Arc. Imagine 10 models in a Ghost Arc jumping out. They can all of a sudden fire 20 Strength 5 -2 weapons. That is pretty good. That's actually going to put a lot of hurt even on Space Marines with their 2 wounds. There are some other tactical moves you can do. Veil of Darkness, which means that you can essentially teleport up the table with a large unit. Imagine 20 models going up the table with Veil of Darkness, all with Gauss Reapers, all within 12, Assault 2, Strength 5, -2 AP. Again, that's a nice strategic ploy that you can use on an opponent. It's a nice move. So unless you've got something like that, stick to the Gauss Flyer. But if you have got that opportunity, whack some in if you're going to be jumping up the table one way or another. Abilities, well, what we commonly expect, reanimation protocols, command protocols, so they're affected by that. I will go over command protocols at a later date in a separate Tactica because they are very specific, but in this regard, you know that this unit can take advantage of it. They also have the ability, their number is Legion. Reroll and reanimation protocols of a 1 made for this unit. That means that out of all the units that are going to be taking hits, this unit is most likely to get a wound back. And since they only have 1 wound apiece, that means that you're likely to raise a lot of models back. So lots of small arms fire from different sources will really struggle to take down your Necron Warriors. Again, this is a good opportunity to be a large unit, and combined with their leadership of 10 and the fact that if they suffer casualties, obviously you don't want them to run away, you're really starting to make a very difficult and tenacious unit that is merely a troops choice designed for holding ground and taking objectives, or holding objectives rather than actually being a spearhead, and you're making it very difficult for the opponent to remove them whilst having other things on the table. Faction keywords, Necrons and Dynasty, what you'd expect, and the basic keywords will be Infantry, again what you'd expect, Necron Warriors and Core, which means that they can take advantage of just about any character in the game. On that note, Chronomancers, they're quite good because they can give the whole unit a 5+ invulnerable save. If you've got 20 of them, you're going to want to keep them alive. They've only got a 4+ save. This can help you. However, that 5+ invulnerable save isn't the only thing that a Chronomatron does, and you might want to give that to another unit such as Lich Guard if they want to reroll their charges or whatever. So be very careful about where the Chronomancer goes, but it can help out. If you've got a large blob of models that you want to have a 5+ invulnerable save, that's going to make them very tough to take out. The Technomancer, well, that's quite a nice little model to really boost up things like Necron Warriors. The rights of reanimation of a Technomancer means that a Necron Warriors unit receives D3 models back whenever he uses it in his command phase. That is very effective, and if you have 1 Technomancer and 2 Warrior units, you can pop a Stratagems for support for doing that. The Deathless Arise enables for 1 command point the Technomancer to raise up D3 models from each of the units. You can use it twice, so 1 Technomancer can heal 2 units a turn for D3 models, which is very tasty. Whilst on that subject, the Ghost Arc, which is a very big and tough unit, can help out any Necron Warrior unit it wants to raise D3 destroyed models in a turn. So that is pretty good. Repair Barge is the special ability that does that, and it can only be used on a single Necron Warriors unit. However, there is no limit to the size of the Necron Warrior unit. So if you have a large blob of 20 and a Ghost Arc next to them, they're not being wasted. You've got the Ghost Arc that will support them with its weapons fire and just generally be a big unit that is in the way that can also raise D3 models a turn. Again, there's a stratagem to help out for 1 command point, Reconstitution Protocols, which means you can raise up D6 models instead of D3. It's a bit swingy. I mean, you might roll a 2. It's not going to be great, but for the most part, it's going to be better than D3. And if you roll a full 6, that's going to be hilarious. Before we go into stratagems, we'll have a look at what other units can potentially support a Necron Warriors unit. It's not very popular, but the Canoptech Reanimator does give the ability to raise reanimation protocols with a +1, which is going to be helpful. I mean, it's better than nothing. Again, it's not very popular and most people won't bother, but if you have one on the table and you direct it to 1 or change direction to a different Necron Warrior unit, you at least give a bit more survivability to that unit. As always, Overlords, either in the Catacomb Command Barge or the basic Overlord on foot, can give My Will Be Done. That will add +1 to an attack's hit roll, which is nice. When you have a large unit of these boys hitting on a 2+, you're going to do a lot of damage, and there are other ways of increasing the power of your actual shots, which I'll go over later on. So yeah, you know, they're quite good abilities to boost your warriors, and that is always that's well received in general, especially if you have a lot of them. The Necron Lord does a similar thing. The Lord's Wheel, reroll hit rolls of a 1. You stack that with an Overlord and you're going to be hitting on a 2+ and rerolling hit rolls of a 1. Again, it might be a bit overkill, but it's a nice ability to have, and if you've got units spread across the table, you have an Overlord here and a Lord over there, you're going to get the most out of the units in that regard. If you've got a large phalanx of models, say 2 or 3 big units of warriors, and you've got a load of characters behind them supporting them, you're going to have a very effective phalanx, and it's going to be very dangerous. On that note, all these units can have the Old Faithful Resurrection Orb, which is great because it enables you to bring back even more models for a one-off. If the unit is 20 strong, it's gone down to 6, you might be like, well, I'm going to see if I can bring back 14 models. And that's always going to be well received, especially if you've got Technomancer that's adding D3 to that, or Ghost Arc that's adding D3 or D6 to that. It becomes a very difficult unit to remove, and you're only going to raise them more from the dead. That's why you see a lot of competitive players taking quite a large phalanx of 40 or 60 Necron Warriors, all on foot, marching up the table. Royal Wardens, well, they are a bit more useful in that they can actually assist in getting models up the table. They add 1 to the move characteristics of a dynastic unit that is core, which is always handy and nice. If you get tagged in close combat, you can move back and still shoot and declare a charge if need be. Again, that's kind of nice. I wouldn't bother with the Royal Warden simply because you'll be taking other stuff for support. It's a waste of points. But there is, a place for them if you want to take a large phalanx of models, and this is to do it. Other characters I don't believe give as much benefit, particularly the Destroyer Lords, the 2 variants, or the Psychomancer. Definitely not the Plasmancer. It's more of a killy thing, but at least you know that you've got some real benefits from quite a large core of models there. The Triax Stalker is also a very effective unit that can help out warriors. A Necron unit that targets a unit that has already been targeted by a Triax Stalker, such as a warrior blob, when it makes a ranged attack it can reroll hit rolls of 1. Essentially means you don't need a Lord. The only problem here is you might be wanting to use the Triax Stalker to target a vehicle that you don't want to target with your warriors, particularly if it's got a heat ray so it can use its melter attack or whatever, or you might do a lot of damage to a target and not want to waste a whole warrior blob upon it. Anyway, if you have got the opportunity, take it. It's a nice little reroll hit rolls of 1, and if you have Triax Stalkers in the army as well as other vehicles, because you're trying to spam quantum shielding, then it becomes a very effective way of boosting up your units and not relying on characters. So, moving on to stratagems, we have a few notable choices there which are quite good. One that I particularly enjoy is Relentless Onslaught. 1 core infantry unit in the shooting phase will count any of its rapid fire hits of a 6 as 1 additional hit. Gives you a sort of quasi Tesla effect there, and it means that if you have a lot of rapid fire shots, you're going to be generating even more hits with them, that's very tasty. It means that you can really put the fire down the table, and if you're in rapid fire range, which would be a reason to take the Flayer over the Reaper, you can put a lot of hits down range. It's going to be a very effective weapon, and up close it makes your unit an absolute monster. Another good one would be Disintegration Capacitors. For 1 command point, a Necron's unit that is firing with a Gauss weapon will, on unmodified hit rolls of a 6, automatically wound the target. So if you're putting out a lot of shots with this unit or with a unit of 20 models and you're rolling a good few 6s, you're going to get automatic wounds on them, which is going to greatly help your ability to take down really tough targets, particularly things such as knights that have a toughness of 8. Even vehicles is going to help with. It's going to help against all targets because it's on the hit roll, so it's going to mean that you don't have to roll a wound roll, which means you could potentially miss. So even lower toughness models are going to suffer a lot of extra damage thanks to the Disintegration Capacitors. And if you're scoring additional hits on a 6 because of Relentless Onslaught, you're going to get even more hits on the opponent. Unfortunately, those extra hits don't benefit from Disintegration Capacitors, but the initial hit of a 6 will, and that means you're going to get loads of extra chances to wound the model, you're going to do loads of damage, and it's AP -1, which means you can really strip a lot of wounds off things. Out of all the stratagems, these are the most relevant. I mean, Disruption Fields, you're not going to really want to increase the strength of a Necron Warriors unit when you can increase the strength of other units that are core instead. But you never know, there might be a circumstance you bring it up and you might want to finish off a model or a handful of models and charge into them with, say, 16 warriors who are left in the unit. So if you have that opportunity and you have to take it, then it's there for you to increase their strength in close combat. Personally, I wouldn't bother, but it depends on the circumstance. And if you can take advantage of that, then by all means do it. Medford Stratagems, well, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the opponent. Again, if you're getting lots of hits on something and you're popping other stratagems to do more damage, those unmodified hit rolls of a 6 cause an extra wound can really help you strip the wounds off a unit that you're trying to kill off. So Talent for Annihilation from Medford is very nice on large warrior blobs as well. Reclaim a Lost Empire from the Nihilak, which I think I pronounced correctly. That faction basically can have 1 infantry unit and they can shoot and not fail in action. So if they're holding an objective trying to score points, they can still shoot, which isn't terrible. I don't know how often it'll come up. It depends on your secondaries that you've chosen, but it's nice to have that option. Similarly, Methodological Destruction from Saltak, that's pretty good. Add 1 to the hit roll, so you don't necessarily have to utilize other units to do so. You've got 2 command points, you can do it, and you can spread the fire across the table, so have potentially more models hitting on a 2+ from the 2 separate warrior blobs. That's kind of nice. Wouldn't really recommend the blood rights. I mean, you don't want to raise the attack units of this unit when you've got other stuff that's probably more choppy, but you never know. Blood rights from the Novok might be useful. Bear it in mind if you have the opportunity, it might be okay. As I mentioned earlier, Veil of Darkness does directly affect warriors. They're probably the unit that you're going to most likely put 20 strong into and then teleport them around the table, try and get them up close, do a lot of damage with all their Gauss Flare or Reaper shots. Orb of Eternity, again, it's going to make the unit extra tough, difficult to take down. That's quite a nice thing to do. So a lot of people will take an Orb of Eternity and raise up models from the dead. So those are pretty much the only relics that I really recommend that will affect this unit, but they're quite nice. Now, I've got a special mention to the dynastic special rules that are in the book. First up, we got Mephrit Solar Fury. Within half range, you get an extra pip on your -1 AP, so that's -2 AP. That is quite good. Extra 3 range, that's always nice as well. You want extra range, so you got the slow movement that is compensated with your flayers. They're going to be 24 inches going up to 27. So yeah, that's quite a good one. If you've got a Mephrit Warrior Blob, they're going to be very dangerous up close, and that's going to turn people away. And they're also going to be able to contribute from further away. Saltec enable you to reroll morale tests, and with a leadership of 10, this could be quite useful. It also means that your rapid fire weapons can move up the table and fire double range at 18 inches, which is also very effective. So a large blob of warriors is going to be very powerful in Saltec for that very reason. And yeah, they're highly recommended for them. Wouldn't really recommend warriors specifically for the other factions in there, because let's be honest, they're going to be good anyway. They're doing what they do on the tin. Excuse the pun. They're going to be there holding the line. They're going to be holding ground. They're going to be contributing to your firepower. So they're going to be useful anyway, but they're not specifically made great with the other dynastic codes. Possible exception to this is when you have a circumstance of awakening when you're creating your own dynasty. Isolationists within 12 inches add +1 to the strength of the characteristic. Essentially, you're giving your flayers the same strength characteristic as your Reapers, strength 5, within the same range. That is very effective, and it means that you don't need Reapers as much because you've still got the range further away to contribute and shoot, but if you get up close, you've essentially got Reapers anyway. So Isolationists is definitely something to consider if you're going to take lots of warriors and you plan on getting up the table with them and you're making your own dynasty. So overall, warriors are a highly recommended unit for a Necron's army. They are literally the backbone of the army. They always have been. They've always been very popular, and they also work really well now. They are a very effective choice. In previous editions, everyone leant towards Immortals, which kind of hollowed out the theme. You know, lots of faceless warriors marching up the table. It was always pretty cool, pretty cinematic, and players like to play against it and they like to use it, so it's good fun. Use them for supporting your attacking elements with, I was almost said bolter fire there, but flare fire. You're going to want to move up the table, take ground, hold objectives, score points, and just contribute in general. And remember, if people kill 10, 15 of your warriors and they leave your Immortals, Lich Guard, all your attacking elements alive, then they're going to get hit with their attacking elements. So they're probably going to target those things over your warriors anyway, especially if you've got a large blob, and reanimation protocols makes them very difficult to take down. Anyway, that's all there really is to say about Necron Warriors. That's my advice on taking them. Hope you like what you hear. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all soon. Peace out.